Hi, everybody. Welcome to Two Off the First. It is July the 1st, 2024. I'm Ryan Ballengee. Thanks for being here, whether you're catching us on the live stream here on the platform of your choice or catching us as a podcast after the fact. Thanks for being here. We have plenty to discuss. Nothing extremely controversial from the weekend. Some interesting results to go through. Some golf spilled over to Monday today for the U.S. Senior Open that I do want to talk about. I thought that was pretty fascinating, and we'll get into that from Newport Country Club. Blandemonium has struck the PGA Tour Champions affiliated majors, so we'll talk about that some. We got Akshay Bhatia coming up ever so short of getting into a playoff that would have given him an opportunity to pick up another win this season on the PGA Tour. Instead, we have our first two-time winner in Detroit. Maybe that's what completing the 3-1-3 challenge is all about. And then we've got the Italian Open, we've got the LPGA, we've got the Corn Ferry Tour. I mean, we've got lots going on here. So let's get into it all with you. Again, thanks for being here. Sorry for the delay in doing the show today live. A bunch of different things happened. My kids' rope swing finally frayed apart today. They were out there in the yard. My son was swinging on it, and then all of a sudden, he was not swinging on it. So try to figure out a way to replace it with a different one. It's too short, so we can't even find like the right branches. Parenthood is a tough one today. Okay, so let's get into the golf. First, let's start with the Monday finish. We had a conclusion to the U.S. Senior Open spill over into Monday at Newport Country Club in Rhode Island, and that was primarily because of a storm that the USGA tried to get in front of yesterday by teeing off relatively early and like 8:20. Started super early on Sunday, end in threesomes, 1 in 10, trying to get it all in, and they just couldn't do it before the storm rolled in. Like 4 in the afternoon or so. So they have to come back on Monday, finish everything up. Basically, 90% of the field still had to finish at least a hole, which that's kind of wild. There were 71 players in the weekend field, top 60 in ties. And this is a 4-round event versus the 3 rounds you would typically play on the PGA Tour Champions week to week, even though they're majors. The ones they own are 4 rounds. So you get to this, basically a full back nine's worth for the final group. They were through 10, so they have 8 holes left. And you've got Hiroyuki Fujita, who's a Japanese tour kind of legend, like an 18-time winner in Japan. He's in the lead. He comes into the day with a multi-shot edge. And you're thinking, all right, well, it's basically him and Richard Bland for the title. And if Fujita just gets to the clubhouse, then he's probably going to win this thing. And that was the rub, right? So Fujita, everyone struggles. I mean, the conditions were pretty wild on Monday morning. I mean, they were pretty windy. They dried out the golf course with the wind, so it wasn't really all that receptive. It wasn't so dry that it was unreceptive, unplayable, but it wasn't, throw it to the target, spin it back, kind of easy style pro golf. It was kind of somewhere in between, made it interesting. And obviously the wind made it interesting because it was against the prevailing wind, as Brad Faxon, noted New Englander, talked about during the telecast. And that made the 18th hole play what was a hole that plays on the day. It was 466 on the day, 466 for the card on the day. And playing as a par 4, playing into the wind, basically made it a 500-yard par 4 for these players. And Richard Bland hits it, 290 off the tee regularly. He's still got a lot of pop in the bat for a guy in his 50s. And Vegeta is not quite that pop in the bat guy, more like a 270 hitter, which, I mean, still is great for someone in their 50s, but that's not long by the 50-plus standard. So Fujita is going last. Bland is in front. He gets to 18. If you basically par the hardest hole in the golf course, you're going to win the golf tournament. Winds up in a center line fairway bunker on this kind of dogleg right par 4. And he tries to get out. He's kind of stuck up against the face, cannot get all the way to the putting surface. He leaves himself about 40, 45 yards short, somewhere in there, I think, but winds up trying to, he leaves it in the rough to the right, which it nestles down a little bit, winds up kind of pulling it a little bit. It goes long left, and then he's got to get up and down. He does get up and down, which proves actually really important. He makes the putt with the last revolution. It was going to roll over. He gets in, posts the score of 13 under 267. Then you've got Fujita, And Fujita's been struggling since the day starts. It's almost like he knew it was kind of like a version of imposter syndrome, that he was playing great on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, but he knew he probably shouldn't be in this position. He talked about it in news conferences. Not that he was an imposter, but just kind of didn't expect this to be in this situation. He bogeys 11, 12, and 14. He gives back the lead. He's lost the lead. Well, now Bland has bogeyed 18, so it opens the door. Now they're tied. He can't make the birdie putt on 17. It was close. It was close from what, probably 12, 13 feet, and then gets to 18, and he has to just absolutely nuke a fairway wood to get just to the front surface of the green to give himself a putt to win, and then winds up coming just a little short. It turns left at the end. It was a really, really good putt. Makes the par. They go to a playoff. So now we have the first two-hole aggregate score playoff in the history of the USGA. This is what they went to, what was this, 5 years ago, whatever it was, and they hadn't had one in any of their major professional championships, whether that's the US Open, US Women's Open, US Senior Open. So this is the first time you have one. They go and play 10 and 18, they're par fours. Both guys par the holes both times. Then that turns to a sudden death playoff, and now you're just playing 18 on a loop. And they go ahead and play it. And the third time, they both bogey it, which, I mean, that's interesting enough unto itself. They both had, I think Fujita had a par putt to win, but neither of them make it. So now they're going to 18 again. This time, Fujita can't get there, and he winds up short. He's got to try to get up and down, winds up in a bunker. Then you've got Richard Bland, who winds up in the left side. I mean, he just pulls it bad, but he had enough on it to get in the bunker. Hits an incredible bunker shot, clips off the stick, lands what, an inch, 2 inches from the hole. You know he's good for four. Obviously, he's got putted, but he's good for four. And Fujita has a putt that he gave a great effort to make a par that would have extended the playoff to a fifth hole, but instead does the same thing that happened in regulation, basically curls left at the end, misses the putt, and Richard Bland is a U.S. Senior Open champion, and he has now won his first two starts ever on the PGA Tour Champions, which that puts you in very rare company. I mean, Arnold Palmer kind of company. So he does that. He's won two majors this year. He's won both of the PGA Tour Champions affiliated majors, which he can compete in because he can't play in the Regents tradition. He is not a member of the PGA Tour Champions, and he can't be because he's on LIV. He can't play in the next major, which is the Colleague Companies Championship. It used to be the Senior Players Championship. Can't play in that because he's not a PGA Tour Champions member. And even more, right now, he can't compete in the Senior Open Championship, which is the last major of the year, for which he would be eligible because there is a LIV event that week, and he is contractually obligated by playing LIV to compete in that tournament. So he finds himself unable to play in the third of three senior majors he can compete in this year. So he's denying himself currently at least, the Bland Slam, I guess you're going to call it, Bland Slam, whatever. We'll come up with a better term than that, but the Bland Slam. And he can only complete these two legs right now unless LIV says to him, hey, go out there, go win this third senior major. Don't worry about it. But after all, you're on the cliques. And go ahead and we'll bring in John Catlin as the reserve or whatever. He'll play that week. You go out there, you go try to win the Senior Claret Jug. I don't know what the trophy's called for the Senior Open, but the Senior Open trophy, and see if you can go do something, amazing. And I have a feeling that may come along. It just kind of makes sense. This is better marketing for LIV than Richard Bland playing in another LIV event. No offense to Richard Bland. He stands out here, right? He's been playing great golf. He showed up and done well. So you probably want him playing in something people watch fair bit more than just a standard LIV event. And that's not meant to be a shot. That is literally the fact. But you've got a guy in Bland who's playing excellent golf, and he's been pretty humble about it. I mean, I will give him that. I'm not trying to be revisionist about taking Saudi money and stuff like that, but he has played great golf, and the results have showed. Good for him. He won $800,000. If you did not catch this, at the U.S. Open and the U.S. Women's Open, The USGA has changed the prize money payout for their what they call their professional championships, because professionals can compete, and they have bumped that winner share to 20%. So last year this was $720,000 to the winner. This year it is $800,000 to the winner. So been a big couple of weeks for Richard Bland between winning the Senior PGA, winning the US Senior Open. It is fascinating to me to have these kind of instances, and they've happened multiple times in like the last 5 years. And that's outside of Steve Stricker on the Champions Tour, where you have like, uh, I mean, this is one of them, but Steve Alkers, your Stephen Ames of the world. You've got I mean, just all kinds of players who just kind of have like their shining moments, and it's a season, maybe it's two majors, whatever it is. But it is really interesting to watch guys who are just kind of on the edges of the few, that the tour level competition, PGA Tour, Live, whatever, and they're still active and they're still good enough to compete at that level, and they go to the senior level and they just smash. I mean, that's kind of what Steve Stricker did. He's won 7 senior majors, finishes 4th in this one, comes close. What's also really interesting to me is the structure of the senior majors, because the way that they are built, you basically have 5 majors and 8 tournaments on the PGA Tour Champion schedule. Like, they have the early season stuff. They do Hawaii, they do Florida, and then it's like, all right, it's major time, and we just do nothing but majors basically for 2.5 months. And it's really awkward to do it that way, because if you just have a good run of about 2 months, and this is no slight to any player, but you don't have to have a great season to have a great major season. And all the money on the PGA Tour Champions is in those majors for the most part, except for the Charles Schwab Cup and the Charles Schwab Cup Championship, which extends out super far into the fall. It just is not a logically laid out schedule. But if you want to win senior majors, this is when you do it. This is your time of year. So congrats to him on doing that. We don't typically spend 12 and a half minutes talking about senior golf, but hey, it was an interesting finish. I really love Newport Country Club. It's a place the USGA has been going to since its inception, basically. And it's still very much valid for a lot of championships that they have. It's not valid, I don't think, for the US Open, and 13 under won this one. But it is still very much a fascinating competitive test, and I really, really enjoyed watching it. I hope we get to see more of it. And I keep thinking about this, and we'll pull this to Live for a quick second. This notion that Chambers Bay, which hosted the 2015 US Open, USAM before that, is a good quality public golf course. It just happened to have really crummy greens the week of the US Open, and they weren't constructed properly. They weren't done with the right grass. They just were not done properly. And they changed grass, they changed the greens, and make them look good. The USGA goes, well, yeah, but we've already booked out the US Open into the 2040s, so what do you want from us? And the Chambers Bay folks are like, well, we don't want a lesser champion. We want another crack at the US Open. They go, well, we've already kind of decided the fate for this championship for 20 years running. So now Chambers Bay and the county government behind it, they are talking to Live. And they may take on Live and have Live Golf Seattle or whatever it is, because the future championships of the USGA, especially the US Open, are spread out so far in advance that really the only thing that is left for non-anchor sites is the next best thing available. And that's not to say that that's horrible, but it's not the US Open, right? So you've got all these championships that need to be filled with spaces, but you've got these clubs that go, well, we hosted a US Open. Why can't we get one of them? And they go, oh, well, your consolation prize is a men's 4-ball or a junior am, or the USGA has lots of great championships, but it doesn't come across as it's something you got to break into, and you can't break into it unless you're Oakmont, Marion, Pebble Beach, or Pinehurst #2 right now. It's kind of incredible. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Rocket Mortgage Classic, which wound up on Sunday at Detroit Golf Club. I need to hear from my Detroit people. Is it Detroit or Detroit? I would love to hear about that. I've been to Detroit or Detroit once before, and that was when AirTran was closing. They were merging with Southwest. I had an AirTran flight. I flew up to Detroit. I went to a place that I saw on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, which was good, very good, mustard-based barbecue. Then I went under the tunnel, or whatever it is, into Windsor, Canada. I was back when I still played a fair amount of blackjack, still had time for that kind of stuff. And I went into Windsor. They put me in a very nice room at whatever that Caesars was. I proceeded to lose a lot of funny money and then gained it all back. And then as I was leaving in my otherwise completely empty Toyota Yaris rental car, the US Border Patrol was like, "What are you doing? What are you smuggling money?" And they made me sit around for like 15, 20 minutes trying to think about how I could be smuggling drugs or money into the country, even though I wasn't doing any of those things. So might be the last time I've even considered being in Detroit, but I really like this tournament. I think they do a good job with this. This is clearly one of those tournaments stuck on the schedule where you're not going to get 40 of the world top 50. We've got that established now, but they've done the playbook right to go, okay, we're only going to get like 10 of the top 50, and we're going to do the best that we can with that. And I think they did a great job. They had Akshay Bhatia, they had Aaron Rye in contention, you had Cam Young in contention, you had Cam Davis ultimately win it, you had Tom Kim there. You had a decent field, all things considered, I think. But you get down to it on Sunday. Cam Young is just mad like all day because he can't hit the driver right, so he leans on it, went the 14th hole and snaps it. And you can hear it on the CBS broadcast. The mics pick it up, snap. And so we can't replace that because that's a crime of anger, not a crime of indifference or whatever. Basically, under the rules, if you break into anger, you can't just replace your club. So he's playing with a 3-wood the rest of the way. He's still playing very well because he hits a 3-wood 300 yards. Can't make a putt, visibly angry. And then you've got Aaron Rye, who's just kind of hanging in there, not really doing anything, but doing just enough to stick around. Akshay Bhatia cannot make a birdie to save his life, but he gets up and down for practically everywhere until you get to the 72nd hole where Cam Davis has gotten in. He's on 18 under. He's the guy who's threatening to win. All Bhatia needs is a 2-putt from, 32, 35 feet to force a playoff, but he winds up coming woefully short, 5-footer, misses on the low side on the 5-footer, and Cam Davis is your first 2-time winner of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. It's his second PGA Tour win. They're both in this event. You could see what it meant to him. One, that he didn't expect it, and two, that it's been a while coming, right? He's been showing some signs here and there of playing better golf, but never putting together quite like this to win. Now he wins, and he finds himself with a multi-year exemption. He's going to put himself probably easily into the top 50 for next year, which means he's probably going to be one of them 50 players who get into all the money events. Winning on this tour has a lot of meaning now, especially in the era where Scotty Scheffler is winning everything in sight. If you're one of the other people who happen to win a golf tournament, whether that was before Scheffler's run starting in April or March rather, or one of the guys now, you have a very good chance of being in the top 50 just because of the way this season has worked out. I think that's fascinating. So this is a big deal for Cam Davis. And I do appreciate Akshay Bhatia saying after the fact, look, I was nervous. Like, I'm human. I was nervous. I missed the putt. It was his only 3-putt of the week. It was his only miss from 6 feet of the week, which those things kind of go hand in hand. And, he doesn't get the job done. And that's okay. Guys make mistakes. Guys fall. And Todd Lewis with Golf Channel kind of put up this tweet, and I don't need to put up on the screen, but basically, kind of showed some courage by sticking around and talking to Golf Channel and doing the media after. And I think that's going a little far with it. Like the whole Rory thing about not talking to the press after losing the U.S. Open, I feel like that's one thing. And this may sound hypocritical to a degree, and I think it might very well be. But here's my view. Losing the U.S. Open is very different than losing the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Because losing the Rocket Mortgage Classic, people probably won't remember that especially well 2 years from now. Some people will, and Akshay will, but not everyone will. People are going to remember Rory McIlroy losing the U.S. Open for the rest of Rory McIlroy's life. Those are different circumstances. Also, both of them made a heck of a lot of money for that, and maybe that lowers the sting to a degree. I mean, Akshay still made a little over $1 million for finishing in solo second place, or not quite $1 million. With the tie for second place. Still a great week for him, right? In the end, he's probably going to win more, and he'll learn something from this. What he learned in surviving in winning the Texas Open against Denny McCarthy, he will learn from in losing this to Cam Davis at the Rocket Mortgage. It'll make him a better player, hopefully, in the long haul. But for Akshay, I do appreciate that he stuck around and did it. Cam Young didn't stick around, so am I supposed to be mad at him too? And I think that's a fair argument to make. Well, you got to be mad at everybody. Well, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, I think. But I understand the perspective of people go, why aren't you mad at those guys? Or why aren't you lauding, so and so for whatever reason? I get all that. Akshay was still great, very entertaining, very enjoyable to watch. I think a lot of people like watching him. I do. I enjoy watching him play. He's just kind of a different cat, and I like that. We need guys like that. So good for him. To entertain people. Unfortunately, he came up short, but that's the way golf goes sometimes. Then on the Corn Ferry Tour, and I want to talk about this for just a few seconds, not extremely long period of time, because now we're kind of getting into the uh, news and notes type thing portion of the show. But Corn Ferry Tour was in Springfield, Illinois, at a place that used to have the LPGA forever. It used to be the old State Farm, but now it is the Memorial Health Championship. And that tournament is just another go low. Max McGreevy won. It's his first win of the year. He locked. Hmm, that was weird. All right. Well, you're back, and I'm back. Lost the internet here at my house, so I'm on my hotspot. Thank God for that. But yeah, we're talking about the Corn Ferry Tour, trying to wrap up this episode. And we're at the point in the season where we've got about 6 of the Corn Ferry Tour cards or PJ Tour cards from the Corn Ferry Tour list. Top 30 at the end of the season get cards. And you've got a number of them now all decided. So you've got Stephen Fisk, who's now the points leader. He takes over. Max McGreevy is in second. Tim Beating is in third. Harry Higgs is fourth. Taylor Dixon is fifth. All of those players have locked up Corn Ferry Tour cards for next year. So now you're, a sixth of the way there. And it'll be interesting to see how many more can get locked up the rest of the way. Been players with wins and good finishes, multiple wins. Those are the players who are kind of making it happen so far this year. So interesting on that tour. And then we'll wrap everything up with the the Italian Open was wild on Sunday. It was very interesting to me because the finish, it's Marcel Siem, who's like 4 weeks removed from hip surgery, right? And he has the hip surgery, comes back, he's playing golf, looks like he's in good position, and then turns into like a guy who's never played golf before in the back nine between him and Rosner and Pavon. I mean, they all looked in kind of deep doo-doo. And you have Tom McKibben, who went off 3 hours before them, gets to the clubhouse, posts 11 under. It's like he's going to win this thing. And then all of a sudden, Marcel Siem somehow birdies to the 72nd hole, or yes, 72nd hole, gets into the playoff. And then on the first playoff hole, birdies it again and wins the tournament for his 6th DP World Tour win. Pretty crazy stuff. Congratulations to Marcel Siem on the win. And then finally, wrap it all up with the LPGA's Dow Championship, their only team event on the schedule. This was interesting to me, and we can talk about this tomorrow perhaps a little bit, but Jennifer Kupcho and Allie Ewing were right in there, had a good chance to win, and then Jennifer Kupcho basically forgot how to play golf to a degree for the last 3 or 4 holes, maybe the last 9 holes. Just everything, high flare right, short flare right. She couldn't really put anything together. She was basically, Allie Ewing was playing the field 1-on-2, 1-on-2 person teams. Turns out Ronan Yin and Italia Titikul, the Gin and Ronic, team, they wound up winning. Italia winds up making, I think, like a 9-footer. Swings hard left to right on the par 3 finisher, Midland Country Club. That turns out to be the difference because Allie Ewing was, again, playing basically by herself, couldn't make a birdie putt or make a birdie to force extra holes. Wild week, very, very wild week that winds up today. We have a somewhat of a subdued week this week. We've got the John Deere Classic. Patrick Cantlay already withdrew from that, so he's destroyed the betting market for that. And then you've got the BMW International Open. You've got 4 or 5, I think, live players competing in that on the DP World Tour in Germany. The LPGA is off because there's the Ladies European Tour Series in London, which Nelly Corda's not playing because she got bit by a dog in Seattle last week, which that's also crazy. The champions are off. They have a couple weeks off till their next major with the Colleague Companies Championship. You've got the Corn Ferry Tour still going strong, so it'll be a little bit of a smaller week this week. We basically have 2 events, and we'll talk about those as best we can. And then there's a new head of the RNA. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We're going to try and do streams around 1 p.m. Eastern each day. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. We will do that again tomorrow, and then we'll do it on Wednesday. I'll probably pre-record it, to be honest with you. We're going to drive down to Tennessee to see some family, as we typically do on the 4th of July. So we'll try to get that in, but if not, we'll do it as a voice-only version of the show. We just recently started our own Reddit. Go over to Reddit and just type in Golf News Net. You'll find us. We're there. Join us. Love to have you. Our community of talking golf. Obviously, do that here. You can follow us on the GNN Radio YouTube channel if you're catching us there. Thanks. You can catch us on the GNN YouTube channel in general. And then I'm going to tease this out because we're a week away from it. We're not doing it this week because no one's paying attention. But next Monday will be the most important announcement in Golf News Net history. And I'm so excited to share with you. Big smile on my face. Press release ready to roll. We got lots coming. So we'll talk about that next week. But still got plenty to talk about on Tuesday and Wednesday. Subscribe to the show as a podcast if you want to listen to it as an audio of the show. And if you want to listen to us or watch us, just follow one of our social accounts. At Golf News Net is the handle for all of those different platforms. I'm Ryan Ballengee. Thank you for watching. Thanks for sticking with me with the Wi-Fi outage of sorts. And we'll be back with you tomorrow on 2 off the first.